last but not least at all is my momentum is 18 years old now, and my very first client was the Food Hub in Drumshanbo. Yes, Lola, the Boxy Festival was fantastic. And I'm delighted to introduce you to Fergal McPartland. And Fergal won't mind me mentioning that my first client was his father, Noel, a food entrepreneur, absolute legend in Leitrim and beyond, was selling jam to Dubai and the Middle East many, many years ago. So Fergal, you're more than welcome, and we're delighted to learn more about the Food Hub, as I called it earlier, the mothership, and a little bit about Taste Leitrim as well, and what the plans are for the future. So welcome.
Thanks very much, Orla, and hello everyone. My name's Fergal McPartland. I manage the Food Hub in Drumshanbo in County Leitrim. And as Orla mentioned there, we started out nearly 20 years ago. I think it was 2003 was the initial, when we started looking at the project. And Drumshanbo is a small town, or a village really, of 800 people, and Pascal would have mentioned it earlier in his presentation along with Sinead. And just at the time, going back to the 90s, we had a number of, and look, we're no different than most small towns and villages throughout Ireland. You know, a big employer where the community becomes reliant on a large employer and it closes. And in our case, it was the Laird's Jam Factory, who produced Bo Peep jams and had been the largest employer in the town for over 50 years, closed in 1990, and with the loss of over 100 jobs. So as you don't need me to explain here the effect and the impact of the loss of 100 jobs in a town of 800 people, where every family had somebody connected and was working in the factory. So we wanted to, the community came together and we wanted to do something to, I suppose, make use of this. We had this infrastructure in the local economy, but it wasn't contributing. So we were looking at ways to do something. So eventually, after a couple of years, I won't bore you with the details, but we acquired the facility on a long-term lease, a 99-year lease. So we had an old factory which had been closed for over 10 years. And we were looking at ideas to develop, and this is where Orla came in, because Orla was really a huge help to us and nurtured, I suppose, really came up with the idea of instead of having one big employer in a small town, if we could have a number of employers under the one roof. So that's where the idea of the hub, the Food Hub, came from. So we started out and we looked at ideas of how to develop, and people, I suppose, were, you know, well, can we spread the risk, and you know, a lot of different ideas were thrown about, but you know, at the end of the day, what we discovered is you have to have an identity. So we went all in on food. So we said, we're going to develop this food facility. And even though when we came up with the idea, we had no tenants, we had no, really, we had a very vague business plan, if you want to call it that. And I suppose we were called a not-for-profit, and it was a very apt description, because there was no chance of a profit arising out of what we were doing for many years. So if we just go back maybe one, Sonia, just to just explain a bit more about this, the model and how it came about. So we decided that we'd split up. We had a large factory, it was 26,000 square foot. We decided we'd split it up into 12 individual factory units of different sizes, ranging from small startup units of 600 square foot up to units of about 3,000. And we opened, again, our timing was impeccable. We opened in October 2007, just before the biggest economic crash of recent times. So it was the first few years were bleak and it was tough. And for 4 or 5 years, I suppose the community grew, because it was all done on a voluntary basis. And people wondered, what the hell have we done? But we persevered, and we discovered that perseverance and luck were probably the two biggest attributes you can have when you're doing this, you know. So we hung in there. We developed, we opened, as I said, in 2007, and very slowly we gained a company the first year, and then we'd lose someone, and then we gain one and lose one, and went on like that for a number of years. But after about 6 years, so come 2014, we were on a really sustainable basis, and then things just took off and accelerated. And like in all these cases, it's really down to the people you work with and the people who came in. And really, when you look back on it, all our successes, they've all really been family businesses. And I think that's a hugely important factor especially in rural areas, that it's small family businesses where those families and those people are invested completely in the community, and they're the businesses that have succeeded. And the businesses now we're at 100% occupancy. We have a range of different producers. And as I said, if you just move on, maybe Sonia, to the next slide, just some of the businesses that have been with us for the last number of years, ranging from cheesemakers, the Cheese Hub, to Blake's Organic, who are making kefir, McNiff's Boxty. Orla mentioned Boxty earlier, has been synonymous with Leitrim and this part of the country, and McNiff's have been with us for the last 6 years now, going on 7 years. We have small jam producers, Bo Peep Jams, and then not on that slide are our two largest employers, who are Chef in a Box, who are a company making fresh, ready meals, who have over 40 employees. And also the Shed Distillery, which is again with us since 2014, and they're employing over 30 people. And I suppose they probably have the best known brand product that we have here, which is Drumshanbo Gunpowder Irish Gin. And I suppose that's the new visitors experience with the Shed Distillery, which opened in September 2020. Again, timing wise, it's not it's difficult for all businesses when you're opening and closing. Generally speaking, the food businesses we have here have done well during the pandemic, and I know there's probably a number of reasons for that. One obviously is the travel restrictions that came into place. People weren't moving further afield to shop, they were shopping local, and it certainly made people more aware of supporting their local businesses. And I think as well, people have taken time. The last 12 months, there's been a lot of people taking stock and reevaluating their lives and what they're doing, and we're not maybe as distracted as we were before. People were rushing and racing, and we've had a lot of people who've maybe in completely different jobs, maybe in office jobs, but have always had a bit of a passion for food, and who are now looking at developing food ideas and becoming food entrepreneurs. So we're doing our best to help them on that path. And I think one of the biggest barriers to people to get involved in the food business is the infrastructure. So you start out with the idea and the passion, and most people are making products at home in their kitchens. But it's when you need to move the business on and scale up that it's a tough to transfer from your kitchen to an actual production unit, where you need to get to the scale that makes the business viable, and that's a real challenge. So, like, we found over the years that that space, we thought we'd never fill our centre, which was 26,000 square foot. And when we started out, Elaine had some very kind words earlier, and certainly when we were starting nearly 20 years ago, we'd love to have somebody to bounce things off and ask questions, and to see, to avoid pitfalls and mistakes, because so we had to make them ourselves. And we've shared our experience with a lot of people, because we don't see the whole development of food hubs. We don't see people as being in competition with us. We think every region, can support a number of food hubs, and I think it's very important. Our experience here has been that food producers will travel, up to 100 kilometers. We've had people who've moved to the area to locate their business here, because the infrastructure is in place, because it's such a huge cost. I think somebody else mentioned, I think maybe it was Elaine was mentioning 3-phase. Even in rural Ireland, even to have 3-phase electricity, even to have a waste treatment plant, it means that a food business of any scale is very difficult to locate in a rural area if you're out in the country. So there's scope for more food hubs, and we're certainly hopeful that that's going to happen over the next number of years. So as I said, we went all in on food, and we're in a very good place at the moment. We also developed a training facility at the outset. It was one of the best decisions we made. So while we were out there grafting, trying to get food businesses to locate in Drumshanbo, we had developed a food training kitchen ourselves. And you can see the figures there. We've had a lot of people have come through the kitchen over the last 10 years.
Fergal, I'll just mention that Jerry Gilmartin has put a comment into the comment box that he completes the hospitality course at the Hub a number of years ago and set him on an interesting journey to becoming a chef.
Yes,
that's great to hear. Well done, Jerry.
Jerry, from Ballinaglair there beside us. Great. So, and you know, we've had, I think at latest count, there's about 10 people who would have come through those courses over a number of years, who are now working full time in the businesses in the food hub. And a number of others have gone on to develop their own food businesses. And it's just all part of it's trying to bring all the different strands together, and just to have a network there that people can fall back on, because it can be a very lonely and, I suppose, difficult journey when you're on your own. You're trying to develop your product, and you're facing a lot of challenges. And I know whilst obviously food hygiene and safety is hugely important, it can be a very difficult, at the outset when you're starting off, it can be a very difficult challenge to get over. And you know, we've had lots of people who've just been so discouraged by their experience in trying to get through that first phase that they just give up because they just find it too tough. So that was always as a community group, we don't, obviously we have a commercial ethos. It wouldn't be right to say we don't, but it's not solely commercial. And as a social enterprise, we can look at a lot of different factors. And so we try and nurture and bring people along where we can. And, you know, we have a model here where we try and subsidize the producers at the outset in their first year or two, while they're facing their greatest expense and getting into the market. And that's worked well for us, because it's meant that people have become established. It's given them an opportunity, and then we can look at the bigger picture, if you like. And then just as a community group, one of our, I suppose, primary motivations is to attract investment and attract job creation into Drumshanbo and this part of Leitrim. And so that was always a big motivation for us. So we were able to look at that bigger picture. So that's one of the reasons that we became involved in Taste Leitrim, which has been around on and off for the last number of years. And again, it's just a network for food producers, between food producers and activity providers and accommodation providers. I think there's around 100 people involved one way or another. And, we try and promote as a, give an offering there that is available, that people that we're selling, we're not all doing our own thing, that there's a bit of a structure around it. And I think that's going to be more important than ever as we come out of the pandemic, that I think there's going to be a lot of domestic tourism, and there's going to be opportunities over the next 12 to 18 months to develop and to bring together food producers, accommodation providers, and attract initially domestic visitors and then international visitors. I think the slide is just moving on a little bit just to, so as I said, we have a full house. So if you told us 10 years ago we had a full house and we have over 100 jobs and no space left, we'd have said, put the feet up, get the slippers out, that's it, we're done. But of course, once you get involved in these projects, they tend to take on a life of their own, and they're continuously evolving. So last year, we completed the purchase of a second factory on the other side of Drumshanbo, which was previously food premises, but it's been closed and idle for about 20 years. It was an IDA advanced factory back in the 1980s. So we completed the purchase last April, and I'm glad to say we just received our planning permission was granted by Leitrim County Council this week. And we're now moving into the next phase of development. So we hope to start, obviously, and again, Elaine would have alluded to this earlier, the construction at the moment is closed down, but by the time it reopens, hopefully, we'll be ready to move on this new project, which is to develop more food production space, and also to develop an education and training hub as well. And we're working on, we have established a link with a third level college, and we hope to really develop this over the next 4 to 5 years. We see a great opportunity. One of the things at the moment, obviously, students aren't traveling, and again, people aren't traveling for work as much as they were. So we think there's an opportunity for these like satellite centres out away from main population centres, and where people can come to work and study, maybe in smaller groups, more dispersed, more socially distant. And as I said, we're embarking on this. It's been supported by Enterprise Ireland through the rural, the REDF, the Rural Economic Development Fund. And we're also speaking, we've partnered with Leitrim County Council and had great support from them as well. And we're, as I said, we're very excited about developing this over the next number of years. Hopefully, again, we're hoping work will start very shortly in the coming months. And there are big opportunities. And I suppose one of the things that struck us even though we've over 100 jobs in the food hub at the moment, a lot of them would be production jobs. And we always felt that we'd like to develop maybe graduate opportunities or opportunities for young people from the region who've been away studying, and rather than have to leave the area, that they'd be able to come back to Leitrim and locate here and maybe pursue their careers here. So we're certainly hoping to develop some, some, I suppose, graduate jobs or research and development, education on that whole area, and we're working on a number of ideas and on a number of initiatives. And again, Orla has been a huge support on that, and using all her knowledge built up over the last 20 or 30 years, all the she knows where to go to get money, and also on just being creative and innovative and coming up with ideas that work for us, that are sort of custom to this part of the country, and that we're trying to do something that that'll be embedded in the community and will be sustainable, and will hopefully offer opportunities for people for not just this year and next year, but in 20 years time. And that's what we're hoping to achieve. So look, that's just a sample of what's going on at the minute. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to.
Brilliant. Thank you, Fergal. Drumshanbo is an amazing town of food. Jenny's are based there, but I think there's well over 150 jobs in the food sector, and that's not counting, restaurants or whatever. So it's a fantastic legacy of what could have been a really dark time, and to come through to a better, bright future. So we're very proud of everything that's happening there. So lovely comments. All praise for you, Fergal. It's one of the most incredible social missions, and again, keeping youth in the community. So there, I think that part of getting the third level embedded in the centre now is the next part, that we can keep talent and stop brain drain. And
So so look, we're
brilliant.
We're in a good place, and it's just a question now to keep the ball rolling, as they say. And sometimes when you get up on the horse, you don't know what direction you're going to go in or where you're going to end up. But it's an exciting journey. So we've look. It's down to the people. So the family businesses, and then the people locally who got involved. A lot of them who were retired and wanted to give back something. And when you get people together that are like-minded and have no agenda other than to contribute something locally, it's amazing what can be achieved, So Yeah.
Brilliant, Fergal. I love that about getting up on the horse. It sounds a little bit like, maybe you said this as well. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Lovely.
I don't think everything has to be planned out to a T. And when you're dealing, people always look for business plans and projections, and look, it's all a paper exercise. At the end of the day, it has to be done on the ground. And you see an opportunity. You might be planning on going in one direction, and just an opportunity might come up, and sometimes you just run with it, and it's the best thing that ever happened. So I wouldn't be too constrained by trying to, meet a 5-year plan, or it can turn into a 10-year plan, or, so yeah.
Well, and in Sham's case, it was a 4-week plan from, deciding to finding an opportunity. And interesting there, Elaine, I know your board are looking at, what's happening behind business plans or whatever. So I think that's brilliant. Fergal, thanks for sharing. That's lovely, Geraldine. Geraldine says that you're on a noble steed there, Fergal. Exceptional work. So now that's really good. A question from Geraldine. Really impressive work for a community group, and I think that's a big thing. It's the effort that's gone in is amazing, and a big task and vision. What's been the key driver of the Food Hub's success? A great question.
Key driver, as I said, Geraldine, it was really just we persevered, and I'd say there were probably 3 or 4 occasions, especially in the early years, where we could have just given up because we were a bit overwhelmed. We'd taken on a very large capital project. We had to take out some bank borrowings. We weren't getting the results that we had hoped for. The economy was struggling, and it was very difficult to see a future in it. But it's amazing once you gather a little bit of, pardon the pun, but momentum. It's a huge thing, whether it's in life or in sport or whatever. But once you get that little, and then we just things just seem to just gather pace. And, so over the last 4 or 5 years, it's just been, it's been amazing. And, you get the right people. I mean, in a lot of cases, you can look at all the projections and business plans, but sometimes you just get a gut feeling or an instinct about people. And, really, that's, and they mightn't, some of the people who've done really well with us mightn't have been the people that had the most impressive, support or paperwork at the time, but you got a feeling about they were real grafters and they were going to make things happen. And usually, the people that, it's like that old saying, well done is better than well said. It was the people who actually went out and did it. I mean, we had people on the other side of it. We had people who used to come back to us every 6 months saying they were waiting on a grant, or they were waiting on this and they were waiting on that. And all of a sudden, 18 months have passed and they were no further down the line. Whereas the guys who went out, and I think, Sham or Pascal will tell you this, sometimes you just have to get out, get stuck in, do it, get your product, and just bit of legwork, go around and shoe leather, go around, try and get people to take your product and start somewhere. And that's, and for the producers, that's been the case. And for us, it's just been persevering, being there. There's been no great secret. We've no secret to the success other than persevere. And then, hopefully you get a little bit of luck along the way. And that's what happened,
Helen McGinty from Roscommon Legion Partnership. Just all the speakers are truly inspirational. And I love this from Pascal. Thanks to Fergal for letting me store 20 ton of flour there more than 10 years ago. I don't think there's space there for a bag now. For one bag now,
That's right, Pascal. We had loads of space, and the price of flour was going up. And Pascal got in early he bought up all the flour in the northwest, and he had it stored above. Look, that's business, isn't it? And we were delighted to help out. And as you can see, Pascal and Sinead have gone from strength to strength since,
Yeah, brilliant. Sham just says, I love this. Never a right or wrong thing to do. Sometimes we just need to go for it.